So, welcome to the Sunday, actually, it's Saturday morning, uh, Dhamma get together, a Sangha talk. It's Friday evening in the U.S., and I'm really glad to see so many of you here today. We've got an old friend back, Nick. I haven't seen him in 3 years or more, and it's really glad to see you, friend. So, Ben suggested that we talk on friendship in the Dhamma, noble friendship. Now, there is a Pali word called Kalyametta, and the Kalyametta actually means a spiritual friend, someone who can answer your the kind of questions you're not even asking, the kind of friend who is going to point out stuff. In fact, it's a better use to use the word Kalyametta rather than teacher. The word teacher actually is much more of a Western kind of concept with a one up and one down position. Now, there is a Pali word called acharya that in the Thai language has been reduced to the word achan, and it generally refers to a title, an honorific, when a monk has been a monk for 10 years. Now, if a monk has been a monk for 10 years, that means that he can actually take new bhikkhus under his wing and become the Kalyametta for them in a kind of an official way. But actually, two newly ordained bhikkhus can become Kalyametta for each other. Now, in the time of the Buddha had many friends and students who came to him. In fact, one of the surprises is that so many of his actual family joined. His surrogate mother, who was also his aunt, ordained. His former wife ordained. The mother of the surrogate mother ordained. Ananda ordained. Now, Ananda actually was both the Buddha's cousin and also half brother, because they had different mothers with the same father. And when the Buddha's mother died, his aunt took over his raising. So he was raised along with Ananda. Now, Ananda was quite younger than Gautama and looked up to him. So when Gautama left to go on his spiritual journey, Ananda then assumed the role of what needed to be done. And actually, we would normally in Buddhism, we refer to it as a king, but in fact, it was an elected office, but it was elected for 20 years. And after Ananda served that, he then joined the Buddha and became his attendant. And that when Ananda ordained, he put he requested of the Buddha 3 points, and one is that the Buddha could never send him away. Another one is that well, I don't remember all of them, but the point is that not sending him away is an important point, which meant that the Buddha often would have new students come, and he would send them to one of the other old friends of the Buddha, and he had quite a number of them: Mahakassapa, Mahakachana, Mahamagala, Sariputta, Chanda. Those were some of the old original students of the Buddha, who then became sort of at the same level of the Buddha, both in the understanding of the Dhamma and the lifestyle. And so they would take on and become the Kalyametta for a number of students. and that Ananda would go back and forth between the Buddha and mostly Sariputta, and get what Sariputta had to say and then take it back to the Buddha. And so this was actually from my Southern background. There was a term that was used. It was called an old boys club. And that's a good description of what the original Sangha was about. It's an old boys club. Now, not being chauvinistic or anything, we're not talking about a particular gender when we're talking about boys. That you could say, in fact, that when the Bhikkhuni Sangha was formed, there was an old girls club then, too. And that I'm really, on the side, I'm really glad to see that the Bhikkhuni Sangha, since its reestablishment in the 1990s, has really flourished. We've got more than 100 of them on the website. So that shows that there's quite a number. There's Bhikkhunis in Australia and in New Zealand and in India, in Thailand, and the UK, and the US, and probably other places. But I would suggest that you go visit the Bhikkhuni page so that you can see where they are. We've got a map, and also we've got each individual one and many of their places there. Now, the whole point about this is that we need to have spiritual friends, because we're really not very good at looking into our own mirror, be able to reflect and to see what kind of thoughts we have and what we're doing. That's especially true for, let us call it, beginners, for those who have not really done any anapanasati, any real practice. It's hard for them to even come out of their thoughts enough to be able to look at their thoughts and to look at their speech and to look at their actions, to look at the expressions on their face. And as you probably all know, you can see other people when they're in some kind of a crisis or whatever mood they're in. You can see that written all over their face. And if you ask them about it, they'll probably deny it because they're not even aware of it. Well, if that's true for the friends that you already have on the outside, you can see that they can probably see you better than you can. Now, there comes a point with that, and that is that the world is filled with ordinary people who cannot see what's going on inside of their own minds, and so therefore they are bound by the habits of their childhood. They're bound actually by the traumas of their childhood. That almost all of the Western existence is people in their adulthood all the way into old age dealing with the traumas of childhood. And that when we're children, we make a lot of choices and a lot of decisions that are lifelong. Decisions about, oh, I've got to keep up. Oh, I've got to compete. We do that with our classmates and our schoolmates, that the schools always put pressure on the students to perform. And when we leave school, we carry along that trauma of, you've got to perform, you've got to keep up, you've got to get her done. How many of you know what I'm talking about? How many of you here have experienced that in yourself, that you've got a job to do? You don't know what it is. And so you place that feeling or that kind of an attitude of, in order for me to be okay, I've got to get something done. I've got to perform. And since that feeling or that attitude remains and consistent, we actually take that thing and put it on various topics. So when the flat tire on the car, you put that, oh, I've got to get her done. I got to get this fixed. Oh, this is an emergency. Or if we're writing a website, we put it on that. Oh, I've got to get her done. Oh, I'm in a hurry. Oh, the website is broken. Oh, I got to get it back up. Even though I'm the only one who ever visits that page, I got to get it fixed in case somebody might visit it. Or if we're at work, oh, the boss is coming. I got to get this done before the boss comes. And then the boss is not even curious. He doesn't even want to talk about it. You mentioned a topic because you're so proud of you got it done for him, and he don't care. So that internal feeling of I've got to get it done permeates our whole life. And sometimes it takes a Kalyametta, sometimes it takes a spiritual teacher to point that out to you, to say, hey, you don't have to get it done. Why are you in such a hurry for it? Why don't you take a break? Now, the point is that you probably heard of the term a workaholic. Somebody's driven. In fact, the people who have a whole lot of money normally are driven to get a project done. For instance, Elon Musk was driven to get PayPal going. And when he did, he became successful. He got a lot of money. And then when the website was up and running and everything was okay, he became really dissatisfied. And so he sold it only to go and do something new. And he was driven. He was driven by Tesla for quite a while. And then he was driven by SpaceX. And now X, or what is it, Twitter, is driving him into the ground. He's just driven and driven and driven and driven. And that actually winds up where many people, thousands of people, see that's a personality disorder, to be driven so hard. But we all have that same disease. Some of us are just not driven quite as hard as Elon Musk. But Bezos and Zuckerberg and Gates and Jobs, they were all driven. They just happened to be a success at what was driving them. And here you are driven, and you're not getting the money benefit out of it. But all of us are still left with that quality of being driven around by our own trauma that we had from childhood, of trying to keep up. I personally really got in touch with my own thing in that regard, is that my dad, after I became a little bit older, he took a job of meter reading. Now, nowadays, the guy who reads the meter, he drives around in his truck, and the microwave or whatever signals, he can just pick up off of the meter, and he rarely has to get out of the truck. But in my dad's time of meter reading, he had to walk all over town, going to everybody's house one by one to read the meter. And he was really good at walking. And so wherever he walked like he was out on the job reading meters. We would walk to church. I couldn't keep up with him. And he would always keep saying, keep up, come on, let's go. He was driven. And he taught me to be driven to keep up to him. And so I wound up with an anxiety disorder that is generally referred to as hurry up. You got to get her done. You're in a hurry. I spent my whole life being in a hurry till I got to Wet'suwet'en. And when I got there, I finally had no place to go to take my hurry. And that was valuable. But that point about being driven, Yes, I was successful. I did university. I did bachelor's degree in 2 years. I did a master's in 1 year. I had all kinds of jobs. I'd worked for IBM and uh, what is it? WorldComp was the thing. One of the cell phone companies. They've changed the name several times. And Hewlett Packard. All of those jobs, and um, sometimes on contracts. And one of the things that would happen was, like in the old days, we had a system called IDMS that had its own kind of database and screens. And in fact, you could say that it was the 1970s version of a website that was running on a mainframe. And that not only would I get my screens or panels done, but I'd wind up doing everybody else's for them too, because I was driven more than anyone else. That drive actually drove me all over India and eventually to Watsuanmoku. So I can't say that it was an absolute dead loss, but it sure was not comfortable to be constantly in a hurry, constantly driven to get something done, until I got to Achan Po, who became my Kaliya Metta. And he started teasing me with that. And one of the things that he would tease me with would be here now. Don't be in a hurry to go someplace else. You're already here. I needed him to point that out to me. And so this is what's the value in having someone who can point things out to you that's actually fairly obvious to everybody else, but out in the world, they thought that that was a compliment, just like a lot of people will think that, oh, doing a PayPal and then doing a Tesla and then doing a SpaceX and then doing a Twitter, isn't that marvelous? Look at the guy's one of the richest guys in the world. And the real point is that no, he's driven. He's miserable with doing it like that. That I said years ago, I'd like to sit down and have a nice, slow chat with Elon Musk, but I don't think that he could sit there in the chair long enough to figure out that he's actually in a hurry to get up and go someplace. So this is one of the points, just one of the many points that can be pointed out with a spiritual friend. We all need them. I mean, we can sit with our, cross-legged on the floor with our eyes closed for months and months and months, day after day after day after day, and not recognize that I got to get up from here and go someplace and be able to see that hurry up, that driven quality. Other people have different ones. For instance, some people have a driver called Please Me. Now, everybody has a Please Me driver, and it always will come up when we're lying, because we want people to believe our lie. We want people to please me, and so we'll do these kind of gestures. Women generally have a Please Me driver stronger than men do, and that Please Me driver is, let's get along. Oh, let me do something that you like so you'll like me. And so when I'm lying to you, I want you to believe me so that you'll like me, when in fact I know it's a lie that I'm telling. Another one would be, the driver would be strong, be tough, be the bully, be the boss. And people who have that, they don't see it in themselves. Other people can see that kind of a driver. And then the worst one of all is the driver of try hard. We expect to lose, we expect to fail, but we at least got to show other people that we're trying to get it done, even though we expect to fail. I actually saw that in myself when I was in the Naval School of Music, because I came in as a tuba player, and because it's a bass, they expect me to learn how and play the string bass. And boy, did I try hard to learn the string bass. Got great big blisters, spent a lot of time practicing, but I knew I could not play the string bass. The best I could do was to show those sergeants that I was at least trying to play the string bass. How many of you ever been caught in that sort of a situation where you know you can't do it, but you got to prove that at least you're trying to get it done? Yeah, we do that, don't we? These are the drivers that we have, and we can't really see them in ourselves when they're in action. We might be able to reflect back on it, but it takes a Kalyametta to point that out to us right now. And so that's what a good Dhamma teacher is. He's not a Dhamma teacher because he's telling you about the Dhamma. He's a good spiritual friend because he's going to bust your chops. He's going to point out the facts. He's going to let you know what the truth is. And this is often we have to do that very carefully. The first thing that we have to do, in fact, is get that friendship going. That if we don't, you can't just walk into 7-Eleven and tell the girl behind the counter, oh, your face is painted way too much. You've got too much makeup on. What are you trying to do with all of that? You trying to make boyfriends think you're beautiful? She probably won't stand behind the cash register for very long. She'll probably go into the bathroom crying and putting on more makeup. And so you have to be careful with being able to have that kind of relationship. So this is where the whole concept of Sangha comes into place. The word Sangha actually means a collection of spiritual friends. We're friendly with each other, but we do it nobly. What is the difference between nobility is that within ordinary life, criticism, and we don't like to be criticized, but we can take on someone as an advisor, as a Kalyametta, and then we're willing to listen to what they have to say because we know that they're not just criticizing us. Now, the point is with that is that any criticism that we have is actually an opportunity to see what's going on and an opportunity to make changes. And yet we don't like to be criticized. Why? Because it attacks our self-preservation instinct. Oh, if he says that I'm a bad teacher out on the internet, oh, that's going to kill all of my relationships and it's going to make me feel bad and I'm going to die. No, I've been criticized before. Doesn't matter at all. But how do we feel about it when we're criticized? The Buddha, in fact, talked about that in the Sutra number 22, and he advised the monks. And first, he told them about himself that whenever I am revered, on that account, there is no elation. And when I am reviled, on that account, there is no dejection of heart. And then he advised his bhikkhus around there that whenever anybody reveres you, on that account, there's no elation of the heart. And when they revile you, criticize you, on that account, there's no dejection of heart. And why is that? Is because, and I use the phrase, you've been there and you've done that. How many of you were criticized in high school? Mikey, were you criticized? How about you, Alex? How about you, Patrick? You were criticized in high school? David, were you criticized in high school? How about you, Daniel? Yeah, you were criticized, okay. Did you survive? Did all of you who were criticized in high school, did you survive? Look how dejected in heart you became, but you still pulled through. It didn't kill you. Once you can see that criticism doesn't affect you at all, other than how you let it affect you. And so now that you have been criticized up to the hilt in high school, it doesn't even matter. People can criticize all they want to now, but it doesn't get through to you because you know how to play dodgeball. You can play dodgeball with those criticisms only when you learn how to do that. And that's where the spiritual friend comes in, the spiritual teacher, who's going to ask you, how do you feel when he's criticizing you? Look at what you're doing. So this is the value of a spiritual friend, someone who can point out the stuff that you're doing, the stuff that you're saying, and the stuff that you're thinking. Well, what that does then is inviting us to start looking at what we're thinking, what we're doing, what we're saying, and you can see that, in fact, there's big things and then little things in this regard. In the time of the Buddha, the Brahmins were very, very fond of saying that doing an action, like doing a bad action, like harming someone or something, is like chiseling something into stone. It's going to be remembered. And things that you say is like chiseling it into the sand. It will stay for a while and then get washed away. But your thoughts are like writing in the air or writing on water, that you can't even get it finished writing before it's gone. Well, the Buddha said, that's not the case. That's not true. Why? Because the mind is the forerunner. The mind is the forerunner. You can't say something unless you think it. And you can't act. Generally, we don't act until we've said it. So, for us beginners, for us slowpokes, the best thing to do is to start watching our behavior so that we can begin to see that our behavior comes from speech. Now, that speech may not come out of the mouth, but it certainly is in the form of discursive thought. But the deeper kind of thinking, the attitudes that we have, are subtle, profound, hard to see. And so what I would recommend as a Kalyamata is start looking at your speech. Start looking at the words you use, especially the expletives. Because when you don't like something, you'll say something like my dad would say, dang nabbit. Anybody ever heard that? I think that was his phrase for saying, God damn it, but dang nabbit. How about commonly they say, what the fuck, when we're surprised? How about, oh my God? Girls use that one a lot. I generally answer that one, oh my God, with, oh, you've got one? You really do? All your own? You're God? So start watching for the expletives. There's other words that we can use, or that we do use, that we can start to look at. One of them would be the word work. Why? Because work has negative connotations. Work. I remember Goenka says, work, and I worked, and I didn't get anything out of his meditation other than I worked and a lot of body pain. Another word would be job. Oh, it's quite a job. And we can start changing those words from hard work and job, which, by the way, is going back to that childhood trauma of we've got to get it done, into there's no goal here. We're just playing. So the next time that you go to work, Nick, don't go to work. Go to play. Go to the office to play at whatever you were going to work at before. This time you can play with it with a different attitude. Another one that I've already mentioned, and that is the word try. Why? Because when we use the word try, it always has failure built into it. The old joke is the wife comes to the husband and says, "Here, I'm trying a new coffee." And his answer to that is that your coffee is always trying. And that, what does that mean? It means that it's not good enough. So when we use the word "I'll try," so I'll tell students, can you do anapanasati? Can you start watching your mind? Can you make changes? Can you remember? And the child will say, or the student will say, "I'll try." You can see the failure built right into it. They don't expect to work. In fact, they'll come back later and says, "I tried." Failure built right in. And we can't see that in ourselves, but you can see that in other people. And so this is the part of the value of the Kalyametta is that you can see stuff in your friends. Can you point it out to them so that they will receive that information happily so that they can actually do something about it? And when they do, you can congratulate them for making a change. This is what we are practicing. This is actually the Buddha had it set up this way that it actually became kind of a ritual, talking about the triple gem. Alex, do you know what is the triple gem?
The Buddha, the Dhamma, the Sangha?
Right, exactly. That's the triple gem. And that in the ceremony, Daniel, David, have you ever been to those ceremonies when some monk will start out as Buddham Saranam Gacchami, Dhammam Saranam Gacchami, Sangham Saranam Gacchami? They say it in such a way like, "Oh no, this is terrible. What the hell that is." They don't say it in a really delightful way like, "Buddham Saranam Gacchami, Dhammam Saranam Gacchami." No, they don't do it like that. Sangam Saranam Gacchami, because it's actually a wonderful thing. It's a triple gem. It is precious. Now, what does the triple gem actually mean that's so precious? Well, the first one is that there is a path out of our ordinary, painful, unhappy existence. That path actually it is possible to be awakened. It is possible for you to become enlightened. You can go around and you can see a few people who have gained that. But in fact, that was one of the best things about the Buddha is that when people were around him, they knew they were around somebody special. They knew that there was some quality that guy had that they didn't have. So they knew that just because they were in his presence, when you're in the presence of a Kalyametta like Achan Bhikkhu Buddhadasa or Achan Po, you know that they've got something. And you kind of want it. You get jealous a little bit. You get envious. They've got something and you want it too. That's the quality of the Buddha. You know that is available to you. Daniel, you've been around senior monks and you know they've got something that you want, and now you're getting it too. Is that right?
Yes, actually, I also wanted to comment on the triple gem that I actually started using this here at Welcome Dai Tone. So what I do is when I have to bow down 3 times for lunch or for chanting or whatever, and that's quite often actually, I just recollect like the confidence that I've gained in in the Buddha and his teaching, in the Dhamma, and also in the Sangha, like all the people that inspire me. And I find that when you turn that bowing of 3 times, when you stop using it as just a ritual and you start to use it like the way it's actually meant and really recollect that shraddha, that confidence, then it's actually a really beautiful thing.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That's the important point, that if you are around some friends that you get to know that have qualities that are really worthwhile having, then that's what we mean by the Buddha. The Buddha exists. It wasn't some dude who died 2,500 years ago over stomach poisoning. That was not the Buddha. In fact, Thich Nhat Hanh has a phrase is that this century's Buddha is going to be a community of people. This is what was happening in the time of the Buddha, that there were many people who came to him and says, hot dog, that dude's got something. That's that quality of the Buddha. You know that it exists. You have the confidence in it. But in fact, right now, you can say that Mikey is here, David is a Latsuan Mok, Daniel's in Chiang Mai, in the robes, Eric is in the robes, Kat's in the robes, Callie, Kimasitu is in the robes. Why? Because they have seen that Buddha. They have seen that quality. They know it exists. And they're out after it. They're chasing after it, probably in a hurry. Now, there is the Dhamma. There is the teaching of the Buddha. That's the Dhamma. The teaching of the Buddha is how to get out of ordinary life, how to get out of our childhood traumas, how to get out of our wants, our desires, our ignorance. There is a path, the Eightfold Noble Path that we practice. We have a method of practicing that. That is the Anapanasati practice of the 4 qualities, the 4 foundations, the body, the feeling, the mind states, which is our attitudes, and the mental objects, the thoughts that we have. So the method is there. The 4 Noble Truths is there. Then in fact, the Buddha says that he only taught one thing. Only taught one thing: dukkha exists, our dissatisfactions exist, and you can be free from them. The dukkha nirodha, you can bring that dissatisfaction to a halt. You can stop. That's the Buddha, the one who has stopped all of the garbage, all of the dissatisfactions, all the hurries, all the disappointments. We can just stop and see things the way that they really are. That's the enlightenment. You could say, in fact, that there's 2 kinds of enlightenments. You use the word light in the sense of shining a light on it. It's daylight. You can see. And then the other quality of enlightenment is that you have dropped that which is heavy that you can see. And so you become lighthearted, lightweight. You can be fat and still be light. So this is the Dhamma, the teaching of the Buddha, that one follows this teaching, one can, in fact, reach that place of freedom from all worries, all flurries, all problems. We can be free from our dukkha. But then that triple gem, that 3rd item, is much more important than most people realize, and that is the Sangha, our friends. We need those friends. We need them very much. That in fact, just because the Buddha was enlightened and sat around, maybe he taught the Dhamma, but it was the friendship that he established with Mahakaccana, Mahakassapa, Chanda, all of those guys. In fact, the story is that Ananda did not become enlightened during the time of the Buddha, that the Buddha was actually kind of frustrated because as much time as Ananda spent around the Buddha, he never became friends with the Buddha. He was too busy being a servant to the Buddha to actually get it. It was only after the Buddha died that Ananda really figured it out. And so that's also what we have with me personally. I would rather be your friend than be your Dhamma teacher. We have to start off that way, but as you grow in the Dhamma, we'll grow in friendship. And that's when the real Dhamma can be taught. I mean, I can job on about the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Noble Path and teach you all about how to do Anapanasati and everything else. And then you practice a bit, and you come back and you start asking questions, and that's when I'm going to kick your ass. Why? Because we've got that friendship, and I can start pointing out to you the stuff that we've already talked about. This is what the Sangha really is all about, is allowing someone to teach you the Dhamma. Yes, Lars, you've got a question.
Yeah, Dhammarato. So when you're talking about work, and it reminds me a little bit about discipline. Well, now and you described, some of these retreats, like these people are sitting and sort of torturing themselves. But I just wondering, like, if you're say you're a monk or in your Buddha place, are you supposed to get out of bed like early in the morning, and that's kind of like maybe you don't feel like it, so it's sort of like work, or you have to go out begging, and you're not sure if people are going to give you food, or there's a certain art to it, or you're supposed to be sitting and doing your meditation, and maybe you don't feel like it, so there's a sense of discipline.
I can't understand you. Can you be more clear?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Could you hear me?
I heard you use the word begging. The monks don't beg.
Oh, no.
They don't come up to anybody and say, "Oh, please put my food in the bowl. I'm hungry." They don't do that. They go on bendabat. They go on rounds. They go around with their bowl open, but they're not begging. They're not asking anybody for anything.
Yeah, they don't have any anxiety. They're maybe not going to have any luck, or that day or something. Or
Well, the monks will share. If one monk is not getting good bendabat, that's an example of maybe the people at the Wat can see that he doesn't get any food from me because of X, Y, and Z. But the other monks will feed him out of the bowl. In fact, I remember specifically eating the leftovers from Achan Panyananda, one of Bhikkhu Buddhadasa's best friends. He was the abbot of Wat Chulapatan, the Wat where Santikaro. So I didn't go out on alms round. But when the monks are out on alms round, they're not begging.
well, I thought they call it a begging bowl, but I don't know.
Well, some stupid people do. First off, it's not begging, and second off, actually more importantly, it's not a bowl, it's a pot.
Okay.
P-O-T in the Pali language, P-O-T in the Thai language, and bowl in English. Where that came from, I don't know. But it's not a begging, and it's not a bowl.
But is there a certain discipline, like you're supposed to get up at a certain time in the morning? Or?
Actually, that's also a fallacy. The reason why the monks traditionally got up early was because they went to bed early because it was dark. It's only when you think, "Oh, I've got to have discipline," is because you have had your whole life a very, very high level trauma called electric power. And it's because you have gotten used to electric power that you think that getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning is something that you've got to work hard at. Oh, no. You're up at 4 a.m. if you go to bed at 8. If you take a nap, if you have a nap in the afternoon and then you go to bed early, getting up at 4 is easy. It's not trauma. It's not it's not discipline. And another point is that when you're eager for the Dhamma, eagerness is much superior to determination, dedication. All of that is ordinary language for ordinary people. The noble language is eager, enthusiastic, delightful. Be delighted to wake up in the morning and go to chanting. Enjoy the company of the other monks. That's the noble way to do it.
I guess some people enjoy their careers to a large extent, but when they start out, or maybe they work there for a while, then it becomes more of a challenge. But they still have bills to pay, I guess.
No, you don't. You just feel driven to pay those bills. They don't even have bill collectors come around anymore.
Well, yeah, I could live somewhere cheaper up in the woods, but then I think, well, it's kind of lonely up there or something, or I don't know. Less stuff to
Well,
do.
one of the problems with the woods you go to is there may be some bears, but there are no good friends. There's no Kalyametta. Maybe you should start spending some time in a wat rather than out in the woods. That's the point is about going to the woods, going to a foot of a tree, is to gain solitude from the actual ordinary world so that you can begin to get the mind cleaned out.
Yeah, I mean, I like
when
the
you
woods.
have the mind cleaned out, that's when you really are ready to have some good friends who can teach you how to actually live happily.
I guess I like being in the woods, but not all the time.
It's not a matter of whether you like it or not. That in fact, liking things and not liking things is, and the delusion that goes along with them is the cause of dissatisfaction. That's the second noble truth. So start listening to yourself saying, I like, or I don't like.
Yeah, because you're saying like if I don't like something, then it leads to dissatisfaction. I mean, but there's always something that motivates you to do something. I mean, you got to do something. So
there is not something that motivates you. There is nothing that you can see, nothing that you can hear, nothing that you can taste, touch, feel. Nothing will motivate you. All your motivation comes from the childhood trauma that is your habits. Your habits are the motivation instead of eagerness for the Dhamma. There are no motivations other than internal motivations. Someone can see, let us say, a packet of money laying on the ground, walking down the street, and they're motivated to pick up that money only because they're motivated by greed. There are many monks who could walk down the street and see that money laying on the ground. They're not motivated to pick it up because they're not greedy. So motivation, as you can see, comes from within, just like change. Yes, Daniel, go right ahead. You're the kind of guy who could walk down the street, see the money on the ground, and not be motivated to pick it up.
Yeah, sure. Well, I would say that yeah, like the sensual desire, like in the broad sense of it, that has been really decreasing for me, and I can really see that it's like a relief not to have that. So yeah, I agree with you there. And I also had a question about a bit of a different topic, and that is in the suttas, there's two kinds of deliverance. It's deliverance by wisdom and deliverance by mind. And there's also deliverance both ways. Do you
Deliverance
know
by, say again?
Deliverance by mind and deliverance by wisdom.
Okay. Well, deliverance by mind is looking at what's going on right now, and deliverance by wisdom means you can see where things are going. Okay, wisdom is actually a kind of projection that you can see where things are going. One of the examples that I use is when I was a teenager, my dad took me with the guys that he knew out hunting. And that one old guy had a double barrel 12 gauge shotgun under his left arm, and it was pointed downwards. And as he would talk and move around, that gun was pointed at various kneecaps. And all of those guys who could see that gun pointed at their knee, they'd move. They'd get out of his way. They could see that he was pointing his gun at them, but he could not see that he was pointing the gun at people. All right. Now, the wisdom is that where that gun is pointed, if it goes off, that's where the bullets are going to go. All right. When that gun is pointing this direction, the bullet's going to go out this direction. When the gun is pointed in that direction, the bullet's going to go that way. All right. That's the wisdom, is you can see how things are going. You can look and see if this or that happens, that gun is going to go off and it's going to shoot in that direction. That's wisdom. All right. So we begin to gain wisdom. We begin to see how things are. And as we can see how things are and then move from here to how things are here and how things are here, you begin to recognize that you can see how things are going to go. You can see what direction things are heading in, unless we can steer it out of the way. By the way, that story that I just told you about that old man with the shotgun, I have seen that on YouTube video recently, where a recruit was at the police training academy, and he was firing this gun, and then somebody talked to him, and he swung around, and about 15 people hit the deck. They didn't want him to pull that gun out and shoot or pull the trigger again. All right, so that's the whole point, is that you got to look at where things are heading. The mind is a more powerful gun than any pistol that Glock makes. More powerful than any Remington shotgun. That in fact is because of the dirty, polluted, greedy, hateful mind that we do have Glocks and we do have shotguns. If we were comfortable and happy with bows and arrows and spears, we would have never had the guns. We would have used them. Maybe the gunpowder would always have been for amusement, for fireworks. But it's because of war and hatred and fear that, in fact, fear is the main cause of war. It's called preemptive strike. All strikes are preemptive. I've got to get him before he gets me. But in fact, it's even been turned around. You've heard Jesus's golden rule: do unto others the way that you would like them to do unto you, only do it first. So that's the problem. You can see how things are going like that if you take a look and see how conversations are going, etc., like this. You can see how friendships are going. You can see how things are going if you begin to look at how things are. So, Daniel, continue on with that.
Yeah, it was interesting because in the sutta it says that both types of deliverance lead to the final goal. So that's some people, yeah, they get to the highest goal purely by wisdom, and others, or mainly by wisdom, and others mainly or purely by mind. And some get liberated in both ways. That's what the sutta says.
Well, it's a whole lot better to have both forelegs and hind legs, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. So liberating with both ways. By being able to see how things are right now, we can make a change. To be able to see how things are going, we can make a change. Both of those are interrelated.
Yeah,
But
I
if
had
you can
a
see unwholesome thoughts, you can see how unwholesome thoughts lead to dukkha. Then, in fact, that whole point about wisdom is to see in the paticca samuppada how we start with seeing what is, making choices and decisions and understandings of it, which then eventually lead us into grasping and clinging and then into dukkha. That's wisdom, to see that sequence of events. And then the mind is being able to see that state of Namarupa, to be able to see how we make that shit up. Now, I would say offhand that the Buddha would not make a distinction like that particular sutta did, which probably postdates him.
Oh, it's from the Majjhima Nikaya, actually.
All right.
Hmm.
Where in the Majjhima Nikaya?
I think it's in the 120s, but I'm not sure. I'll look it up after the call.
All right. That would
Okay.
be good. I'd like to see that sutta.
Sure.
But anyway, if you can see it that way, you can recognize that if you see what's going on right now, you've got a choice of changing it. If you can see how things are heading, you have a choice of changing it. Just like all of those guys would head for the deck when the police academy student was swinging his gun around.
Oh, I have an interesting anecdote about this. In the last few days, I had to go to immigration, and then when I was coming back, I had a taxi ride, and there was a woman. She was driving me back to the Wat, and it took about an hour to drive. And then I noticed that she wanted to learn me some Thai. So in the beginning, she was very enthusiastic to teach me some Thai. And then I started to notice that she was becoming a bit tired. And she started saying like, oh, she's worried about her kids and she needs money and this and that. And I could see where this is going because this happened to me a couple times.
You can see
And
how
that,
this is going. Exactly. That's exactly
yeah.
wisdom right there. That's it.
And I noticed her mood started to change. And the interesting thing was like, because my sati was strong enough, I wasn't affected by it. And now I understood like what you mean when you said like the Buddha was looking with binoculars. That's what it felt like, because I was like unaffected by her mood, and I could see her like going through all these mood changes. And then eventually when she dropped me off at the Wat, she tried to guilt trip me into giving her more money. And she started getting
She
like
saw more
really,
prolong than she saw robes, I see.
yes. And she was really yeah, you have to give me 300 more baht. And but because I already had seen it coming, I was very prepared. I was like, dukkha incoming. But yeah, I could catch it like right away, and it didn't affect my mood in any way. So I guess that's wisdom. So yeah, it's interesting to start to notice that, yeah, this is obviously like a really gross, like a big, in a big kind of way situation. But you notice it in the small things as well. Yeah. So that's the story basically.
So, does anybody else have something to say? David, how about you? Have you been making good friends at Wat Suman Mo?
A few. Kato's here today. I'm gonna go see if he wants to talk.
What?
Kato is Yeah, Cathal is here today. He came over, so I'm gonna go see if he wants to talk now.
All right. Okay.
How long have
Nick.
you been at Suomok? A really long time now.
Just over 3 months.
Oh, only 3 months. I thought it was already
Yeah.
like 6 or 7.
No, he was at Wat Khao Tum for a long time.
Right.
So, Nick, do you have any comments to make?
No comments, nothing to say. All is well.
All is well.
I'm really happy to be back.
I am too. I hope that you start chatting on this group.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I will do that.
Excellent. How about you, Patrick? You have anything to say?
No, I'm all right. Everything is
You're
good.
all right. Everything is all right. Okay. How about you, Andrew?
I've got nothing to say. Thanks for the call, though. Enjoyed it.
All right. Ben, did you get your question answered?
Yes, I did. Thank you, Dhammarato. Yeah. Don't worry, be happy.
Don't worry, be happy. If you worry, you call me. I make you happy. That's Kaliya Metta.
Thank you.
How about you, Alex?
Oh, everything is okay. I want to say thanks to everybody that came, and thank you so much, Dhammarato, for talking with us.
Mikey, why don't you take this thing home?
Yeah, this was a splendid Sangha call today. Glad to see so many smiling friends. If you guys haven't yet, check out opensanghafoundation.org and sign up. Dhammarado's been adding some cool new features. If you go to the profile page, you'll be able to check them out. I know, for instance, we have a wall now, similar to the way Facebook's wall works. But yeah, if you run into any bugs or issues with the website, now's a good time to let us know. If you don't tell us, we don't know to fix it. So yeah, be sure to reach out and keep up that sort of communication with the Sangha. And also, if you're watching this on YouTube, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button. About 40% of the people that watch these videos are not subscribed. So go ahead and change that. It helps the YouTube videos get a little bit more views whenever it sees that our viewers are subscribed. So thank you again, everyone, for being here.
Daniel, you have any last words? Okay, guys.
Not really.
All right. Well, thank you so much. This has been a delightful conversation. You're all my friends. I hope
you
you're
so
my
much, everybody.
friend so that you like it when I kick your butt. See you.
See ya.